I've transmigrated into a novel, becoming the sister of a CEO. At this moment, I'm gleefully hugging a £8 million necklace gifted by my brother's fiancée. The next second, my good-for-nothing brother suddenly brings home a female lead from a slum, insisting they're true love. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. I object! I shouted immediately, standing up straight. My father, who was about to lose his temper, suddenly paused. Along with everyone else, he turned to look at me. Daniel, how could you do this? I quickly walked up to the couple, looking at their tightly clasped hands, and spoke with heartfelt anguish. Such an important matter, and you didn't even think to mention it to the family beforehand? You had to announce it in front of both sets of parents. Dad has always taught us to be mindful and tactful. Look at yourself now, it's as if you're trying to force everyone's hand. What kind of behavior is this? As he listened, my father's expression gradually changed, and he looked at me with approval, nodding slightly. My brother, Daniel, was stunned that I, usually so thoughtless, could lecture him like this. He stood there, frozen, his face turning red with shame. I sighed again, clasping my hands behind my back and adding in a serious tone. Moreover, you chose such an informal occasion. Not only have you lost face, but you've also shown a lack of respect for the lady beside you. Daniel, also known as the CEO male lead, went from looking completely confident to utterly ashamed. He lowered his head slightly and stammered an apology. I didn't think this through properly. I'm sorry. With that, the couple left the foster house, still holding hands awkwardly. I turned around, putting on a sweet smile again, and sat down obediently next to my brother's fiancée, Emily White. Emily, don't mind them. Please continue telling me about your studies in Germany. Emily smiled shyly and resumed our conversation. Meanwhile, my father pulled Emily's father, Mr. White, aside, discussing something in private. I thought after yesterday's incident, my brother would be more cautious. To my surprise, early in the morning, that girl from the slum appeared in our living room again. If I'm not mistaken, she was even holding a filthy duck. I immediately widened my eyes, hurriedly sliding down the banister from the first floor in my slippers, and quickly stretched out my hand. No! As if deliberately trying to antagonize me. The wretched duck instantly jumped onto my exclusive chaise longue, leaving several large, unsightly webbed footprints on the cushion. Damn it, I was too late. I stood there, glaring at it, my fists clenching tighter by the second. That fabric was from a royal supplier in Belgium, specially brought back by my father. To prevent creasing, I usually only allow myself to sit on it for an hour a day. Now it's been contaminated with the smell of a stinking duck. Quack. Suddenly, a devilish sound completely shattered my hopes. It dared to defecate on it. I'm going to kill it. Sensing my murderous gaze, Mia Bailey quickly hugged the duck protectively, eyeing me warily. I suppressed my rage and spoke through gritted teeth. Miss Bailey, do you know how expensive the thing it's soiled is? Mia jutted out her chin, showing no remorse. I'm sorry. I'll get a job to pay you back, but you can scold me all you want, just don't hurt it. I was stunned. How can someone apologize so defiantly? I held my forehead, feeling myself laugh from anger. Just as I was about to argue further with her, the doorbell suddenly rang outside. Today, the butler went out with my parents, so I had to run to open the door myself. As soon as I opened it, I saw Emily walking towards me with a whole entourage. Yes, a whole entourage. Each person in the group was carrying several bags of beautifully packaged clothes and handbags. It was quite a grand sight. Emily took my hand, her voice gentle. Kathy, I came in such a rush yesterday that I only brought you a necklace. I felt terrible about it, so today I had some people buy a few little gifts. Consider it a proper welcome present. I glanced over the items casually. They were all international luxury brands, and limited editions at that. Things you couldn't buy even if you had the money. The next second, my eyes lit up like laser beams, and I scurried over to examine each item one by one. After what felt like running a marathon, thinking I'd finally reached the end of the queue, I turned a corner to find another line stretching as far as the eye could see. I turned to Emily in shock, who covered her mouth and smiled shyly. I wasn't sure which brands you liked, so I got a bit of everything. Sis! You're my one and only sister. I ran and threw myself into her arms, moved to tears. Emily suddenly noticed Mia standing nearby, looking on longingly. She politely said, "If you like any of these, please feel free to choose some for yourself." Mia curled her lip in disdain and rolled her eyes. "I don't want it," she spat. "You're all so wasteful. I, Mia Bailey, can't stand the hypocritical behavior of you rich people. You're all extravagant and living in luxury. You don't understand the hardships of us working-class people, yet you pretend to be kind?" Emily had been taught from a young age to treat others with respect, and had never been spoken to in such a manner, let alone know how to respond to such rudeness. But I was different. I was, after all, a character who transmigrated from another world. If you look down on us so much, why are you still hanging around our house? Shameless! I retorted. Besides, Emily was just being kind. Because she saw how shabby your clothes were and wanted to give you some. How is that insincere? Mia glanced at me with a sarcastic expression. Kind? No, thank you. I can't accept such kindness. You rich young ladies are all high and mighty, ignorant of the world's sufferings. But we poor people have our own dignity. Ignorant of the world's sufferings? As soon as she finished speaking, I pulled out a stack of charity donation certificates and threw them in her face. This one is from the floods 5 years ago. I donated £1 million. This is from last year's big earthquake in City S. I donated £5 million. And this is from a girls' education program on a certain platform. I've sponsored at least 10,000 children's living expenses. I explained each event on the certificates to her in detail, emphasizing that these weren't just for show. I had taken the time to understand each situation and donated accordingly. Moreover, all this money came from my own savings or hard-earned work. I never asked my parents for a penny. I stared into her eyes intensely and said firmly, "So, what have you done for the people and the country?" Mia was taken aback by my words, her face changing colors like a chameleon. She pointed at me, her voice noticeably weaker. Your family is so rich, it's easy for you to put on a show. It's all fake." With that, Mia glared at us one last time and stormed out. I rolled my eyes and made a rude gesture at Mia's back as she walked away. Then I turned around with a sweet smile and said, "Emily, why don't you stay for dinner? I'll make you some soup." Emily, looking a bit confused, nodded hesitantly. "Oh, all right then." I glanced at the annoying duck beside me and couldn't help but grin triumphantly. An hour later. "Kathy, I had no idea you could cook. This is even better than the food at my favorite Michelin-starred restaurant." "It's amazing!" Emily's eyes sparkled as she nodded enthusiastically after taking a bite. I ducked my head, smiling shyly. "It's just simple home cooking." "I wasn't sure you'd like it." We were enjoying our meal when suddenly the door was kicked open with a loud bang. I nearly dropped my fork in shock. I looked at the door frame with dismay. That door was worth thousands of pounds. Daniel really needed to control his temper. "Emily White, I've tolerated a lot from you, but this time you've gone too far." My brother stormed in, glaring at Emily with cold fury. Hearing this, I set down my bowl and gave Mia, who was standing behind Daniel, a meaningful look. It was me who had confronted her. Yet she'd gone and tattled to my brother about Emily. She certainly knew how to pick her battles. Sensing my piercing gaze, Mia timidly clutched Daniel's shirt and hid behind him, looking pitiful. "Daniel, I didn't." Emily, her face pale with fright, hurried to explain. Daniel let out a cold laugh. "I'm away for half a day, and you've bullied Mia to this state. Now you're playing innocent." What a clever act. Wrongly accused from the start. Emily's eyes instantly brimmed with tears as she looked helplessly towards me. Remembering the room full of glittering luxury items, I immediately spoke up. "Daniel, how do you know it was Emily who bullied her?" He impatiently furrowed his brow, stating matter-of-factly, Mia told me herself. How could it be false? It's clear that Emily was throwing her weight around. Mia was scared to tears. I let out a cold laugh and immediately pulled up the morning CCTV footage on my phone to show him. Not only was the image clear, but it had multiple angles. And even perfectly reproduced everyone's voice. A flicker of guilt flashed in Mia's eyes as she stammered in a small voice. This CCTV, how does it have sound? So she thought she could falsely accuse others just because there was no sound? I laughed dramatically, covering my mouth and deliberately glancing at her sideways. Oh, haven't seen this before? Didn't you say our family is rich? We're not so down on our luck that we'd use CCTV without sound, are we? Seeing Mia's face suddenly turn pale, I picked up my phone again and shoved the screen right in front of Daniel's face. See that? It was clearly her who spoke rudely first. Scared to tears? What a joke! Despite the irrefutable evidence, Daniel still stood unmoved in front of Mia. His expression cold as he said, Mia is just not good with words. You were all too aggressive, so she just retorted a few times. She's all alone and vulnerable, why must you insist on competing with her? Fine, fine, fine. So all my effort in checking the CCTV and explaining was for nothing, right? I glared at him fiercely, throwing caution to the wind. Right. Your Mia is the kindest. I apologize. Are you satisfied now? Since you know you were wrong, then. Before Daniel could finish speaking, he was suddenly interrupted by Mia Bailey's scream. Kathy Foster, where's my duck? She finally noticed. I leaned back in my chair contentedly, deliberately letting out a burp and nodding towards the pile of bones on the table. Mia was about to faint with anger. It wasn't meant to be eaten, it was my pet. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. You won't blame me, will you? I stood up and bowed to her sincerely, blinking my eyes innocently. But Mia suddenly covered her face and burst into loud sobs in Daniel's arms. Daniel's expression, which had just softened, immediately became terrifying again. Kathy, I think Dad has spoiled you too much. You're capable of anything. Mia wiped her tears while sobbing. I've been an orphan since I was little, raised by my grandparents. This duckling has been with me since childhood, it's like family to me. As she spoke, she looked at me with tear-filled eyes, crying pitifully. Miss Foster, I know you dislike me, but why did you have to hurt it? It was innocent. After she finished, Daniel looked at her with sympathy, then turned to me with a look of righteous indignation. As if I had killed not a duck, but a living person. This time, before I could even react, Daniel suddenly preempted. Emily White, you must have instigated my sister to do these things. How can you be so vicious? How is this her fault? I will never marry you, no matter what. Give up that idea. With that, he actually just walked out the door carrying the sobbing Mia, not giving Emily any chance to explain. That was the first time I saw Emily, who always maintained an elegant and graceful demeanor, look utterly lost and devastated. On the way back to Emily's home, I couldn't help but ask her, Emily, after how Daniel has treated you, do you still want to marry him? I don't know. Emily's gaze drifted to the window, her eyes showing a rare uncertainty. But if I don't marry him, who else could I marry? She murmured, her voice as soft as a falling feather. Do you like him then? I pressed. Emily furrowed her delicate brows and slowly shook her head. Like? To be honest, I barely know him, let alone like him. But since childhood, everyone around me has been saying that Daniel is the best marriage prospect, and marrying him would be the best choice for me. Even my parents keep saying so. There it was again. How could Daniel be that great? The male lead's halo was indeed powerful. Unfortunately, Emily couldn't hear my inner complaints as she continued. I've never disappointed my parents. So I think if I can't marry Daniel, they would be very disappointed in me. As she said this, a flash of pain crossed her eyes. That's not true. I quickly took Emily's soft hand, looking at her earnestly. You're from a top family, have a kind and steady personality, speak 8 languages fluently, and even earned a PhD in engineering from Germany at such a young age. How could you ever disappoint them? Emily paused, a spark seeming to ignite in her eyes. Really? It's okay even if I can't marry him? I nodded firmly, of course. You're an outstanding person in your own right. Marrying anyone, or not marrying at all, won't affect your inherent excellence. If you don't like him, then call off the engagement. Your parents will surely understand. So, Emily, be brave and follow your heart. Emily was lost in thought for a long time that day, remaining silent until she got off the car. I didn't see her again for the next few days. On Monday, I arrived at the office right on time. Work was already a drag, but I didn't expect it to get even worse. Mia, wearing the foster group uniform, stood nervously next to Daniel as we rode the same lift. I chose to be willfully blind, ignoring both of them. Of course, they didn't seem to pay much attention to me either. Mr. Foster, I don't understand this document, Mia said, pointing at the file in her hand and shaking her head in feigned confusion. Daniel let out a low chuckle, saying indulgently, "What am I going to do with you? Come to my office later, and I'll teach you myself." The next second, they were pressed together like magnets. My heart tightened, and I closed my eyes, my face ashen. Those few seconds felt even more unbearable than sitting through a maths lesson. Ding dong. The crisp, pleasant sound rang out. We had finally arrived. As soon as the lift doors slowly opened halfway, I squeezed out impatiently, sprinting back to my private office as if running a 100-meter dash. Nina, my assistant, who I brushed past, stood there looking bewildered. "Miss Foster, there's still a full 5 minutes before we need to clock in. Didn't you usually like to push it to the limit and arrive just in time?" Leaning against the door and panting heavily, I waved my hand with effort. "No. Just now, behind me, there were ghosts." Nina looked back puzzledly, muttering under her breath. "In broad daylight, where's the ghosts?" It wasn't until she saw Daniel and Mia that she immediately closed her mouth. Understanding the situation. I've never underestimated Mia's ability to cause trouble. Sure enough, she didn't disappoint me. "Miss Foster, Daniel asked me to bring you some coffee." "Oh no!" Before I could even look up, Mia executed her signature move, tripping over nothing and spilling the entire coffee pot all over my computer. If it had been just a cup of coffee, it wouldn't have been a big deal, but who the bloody hell brings an entire pot when delivering coffee? Judging by the arc of her fall, she managed to distribute it quite evenly. Not a single document or device on my desk was spared. If I hadn't dodged quickly, I'd be taking a coffee bath right now. With a loud thud, Mia landed gracefully on the floor. Hearing the noise, Daniel rushed in and immediately scooped Mia into his arms. "Kathy, how dare you hit her?" "Me, what the hell?" "No, Daniel." Mia quickly grabbed Daniel's sleeve to explain. "You've got it wrong. I fell on my own." At least she's learned to be clever this time. Knowing there are CCTV cameras everywhere in the office, so she's telling the truth. The next moment, Daniel helped Mia to her feet, frantically checking her for injuries. "Are you all right? Where did you fall? Is it serious? Where does it hurt? Should we go to the hospital?" Mia blushed and shyly shook her head. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Miss Bailey, since you're feeling better, let's discuss the work matter," I said hastily, cutting off their conversation to prevent any further drama in my office. I deliberately opened the door so that the employees outside could hear our conversation. There were 5 computers and 33 paper documents here. But due to your recent carelessness, they've all been destroyed. How do you plan to rectify the situation? I pointed to the mess on the desk, maintaining a strictly professional demeanor. Mia stammered for a while before finally managing to say, "But I really didn't mean to." I let out a cold laugh, pressing on. "Does not meaning to do something absolve you of responsibility? If you accidentally killed someone, does that mean you wouldn't have to go to prison?" Daniel finally couldn't hold back and spoke up in her defense. "Kathy, don't twist the concept. This is not the same thing at all. Fine, let's stick to the facts. Miss Bailey, please answer the previous question. How do you plan to rectify this?" I quickly posed the question, my eyes fixed on Mia Bailey. Weren't they just saying I was being too aggressive? Now let them see what real aggression looks like. Mia's eyes welled up with tears again, her voice choked as she pointed at me and said, Kathy Foster, you just want to get rid of me, don't you? Fine, I'll leave. I quit. She yanked off her ID badge and made to storm out of the office. Daniel grabbed her arm, glaring at me through gritted teeth. You're not going anywhere. I'm here today, and I'd like to see who dares to fire you. I raised an eyebrow, unfazed. In that case, Mr. Foster, perhaps you'd like to explain how to handle this situation. It's just a few documents, what's the big deal? He glanced at the desk dismissively. The documents that reach our hands are not ordinary materials. Recreating them would require a significant amount of manpower and resources, I said. But why should other employees bear the responsibility for Miss Bailey's mistake? I deliberately raised my voice, and I could see curious glances from employees outside. Noticing their gaze, Daniel's face immediately darkened. For heaven's sake, don't you have backups of these few documents? He demanded. Of course we do, but unfortunately, your precious assistant here has managed to crash all the computers with the backups. I looked at the other 2 computers on the floor, which had been knocked over by Mia's fall. If you can't give me a reasonable explanation, I'll have no choice but to call the police to investigate whether Miss Bailey is a corporate spy hidden in our company. Mia was completely panicked. The knuckles of her hand gripping her shirt hem turned white from the force, and her forehead was covered in beads of sweat. She helplessly clutched Daniel's hand. Daniel protectively shielded her behind him, raising his chin and speaking coldly. I'm the CEO, and I say it's fine. Although Daniel was the CEO and I was the deputy CEO, according to my father's wishes, we were supposed to manage the company together, learning from and encouraging each other. His person had made a mistake, and now he was pulling rank as CEO. What, does being CEO mean you don't have to follow company rules? I asked, leaning against the wall with my arms crossed. Daniel's face turned extremely sour, and he shot me a warning glance. Kathy, you should know when to stop. Everyone knows who the real heir to Foster Group is. Don't worry, Mia, let's go. Watching their retreating figures leave as a pair, I narrowed my eyes in satisfaction. It seems Mia is indeed very important to him, so much so that he's willing to threaten me. As I arrived home in the evening, I was surprised to see a row of people dressed in white standing in our front garden. Wondering if we had offended someone, I quickly called out, Mom. Dad, what are you yelling about now? My mom rushed over, scolding me. She explained they were interviewing chefs. Curiously, I craned my neck. Mom, why such a grand setup all of a sudden? She gave me a light tap on the head. Silly girl, your birthday party is in 2 weeks. I need to prepare in advance. Birthday party? I blinked, wondering if it would be like those super luxurious parties I'd seen on telly. If our family could afford this, it must be just as grand. Feeling excited, I felt more motivated at work. To ensure I could enjoy a few days off after my birthday, I worked tirelessly for the next fortnight, completing 3 months' worth of tasks. On my birthday, wearing a lovely dress, I rushed to hug Emily, whom I hadn't seen in ages. She seemed to have lost weight, but there was something different in her eyes. It was indeed the most extravagant birthday party I'd ever seen. There was a massive fireworks display, thousands of drones forming luminous patterns in the sky, 2 floors worth of food, and a 5-meter-tall castle cake. Just as I was basking in everyone's well wishes, closing my eyes and clasping my hands to make a wish, Mia suddenly spoke softly from nearby. Isn't such a large cake just for Miss Foster a bit wasteful? As soon as she finished speaking, everyone around, including myself, turned to look at her. Mia thought her words had struck a chord with everyone. She even took a step forward, standing in front of me. Miss Foster, do you know how much money it costs to throw a birthday party like this? Do you realize that this single cake is worth a year's expenses for an ordinary family? Then, she turned around, trying to appeal to the guests attending the party. Think about those children in impoverished areas. How can you feast here in good conscience? After her impassioned speech, Mia's eyes welled up with tears. The surrounding guests began to whisper, and the whole scene started to spiral out of control. Seeing this, Mia cast a triumphant smile in my direction. The next second, I put on a big smile and walked towards her with open arms. Mia hesitated, slowly opening her arms like mine. However, I bypassed her and hugged a little girl in tattered clothes standing behind her. Behind the little girl, there was a group of adorable children, their eyes shining brightly as they looked at me. "Miss Foster, thank you for inviting us to your birthday party. We don't have much to offer, but here are some local specialties as a token of our appreciation." A dark-skinned woman with short hair walked up last, struggling to carry 2 bags. "I told you not to bring anything. It's already a long journey for you to come here," I said, quickly going up to her and taking the bags from her hands, not minding at all that my white dress was getting stained with mud. No, if it weren't for Miss Foster, these children would never have had the chance to visit such a big city," the woman said, waving her hands and smiling warmly. "You must be hungry after such a long journey. Go and eat, have whatever you like, it's on me." I waved to the children, instructing the butler to show them to their seats. Daniel was known for his germophobia. When an excited child accidentally brushed against his trouser leg, he immediately stepped back several meters, impatiently reminding me, "Kathy, don't bring all sorts of riffraff into our home." That was the last straw. I stepped forward and loudly rebuked him. "These are the children from rural areas that I sponsor. They're like family to me, not riffraff. Even if you don't like it, can you please be a bit more tolerant?" As soon as I finished speaking, the entire hall fell silent. Almost everyone, in perfect unison, turned to Daniel with looks of reproach. Daniel retreated to the side with a dark expression, no longer arguing with me. At that moment, an elderly couple dressed modestly walked in slowly from outside. They appeared to be in poor health, supporting each other as they made their way in. I quickly searched my memory but had no recollection of them. Hesitantly, I asked, "Are you here to see me as well?" "No, we're here to see Miss White." The old lady stretched out her frail arm, pointing towards Emily beside me. Emily's face lit up with a delighted smile as she recognized them. Walking over to warmly grasp the lady's hand. "Mrs. Thompson, what brings you here?" "Miss White, I've come to thank you. My son's illness can finally be treated." As she spoke, Mrs. Thompson became so emotional that she began to bend her knees, seemingly about to kneel. Emily quickly held her up. "There's no need to thank me. I just wanted to do what I could to help." According to Mrs. Thompson's account, her son had been an ordinary construction worker. Months ago, he had fallen from a height, suffering severe brain damage. The site manager, seeing the situation, had fled secretly, leaving the 2 elderly parents without any compensation. At the time, forget about surgery fees, they could barely afford even the basic hospital costs. It was then that they encountered Emily, who happened to be at the hospital for a checkup and was willing to help them unconditionally. She not only found the best doctors for their son, but also covered all subsequent medical expenses. "Emily, you're amazing." I immediately cast a look of shock and admiration towards Emily. Emily smiled bashfully, the determination in her eyes becoming even clearer. "These past few months, I've been thinking a lot. I realized you were right, I need to be braver." While we were in high spirits, Mia and Daniel were left standing awkwardly to the side. I glanced at Mia and said mockingly, "Miss Bailey, those who only talk big have no right to criticize us." Everyone's attention turned back to Mia. This time, however, there was derision in their eyes. Mia's face turned bright red as she hurriedly tried to defend herself. "What's so great about that? If I had as much money as you, I could donate to others too." I swirled my wine glass, laughing even more heartily. As the saying goes, no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. Since that's the case, why don't you donate something as well, Miss Bailey? In the end, under the pressure of everyone watching, Mia was forced to make a sizable donation, much to her chagrin. As the party wound down, most of the guests had already left. Emily nervously bit her lip, then suddenly approached my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Foster, there's something I'd like to discuss with you." I want to call off the engagement with Daniel. Call off the engagement? Daniel, hearing this, immediately turned his head, his eyes filled with disbelief. He seemed surprised that Emily, who had once insisted on marrying him, was now willing to end their engagement. Mia's face flashed with unease as she quickly grabbed his sleeve, looking at him pitifully. Daniel, don't you want this? Daniel seemed provoked and reverted to his dismissive attitude. Of course I do. I can't wait to end this engagement. My parents were silent for a moment before finally nodding. They knew that the White family would have been a good match for a marriage alliance. But forcing two people together would never lead to a positive outcome. Receiving their approval, Emily finally showed a relieved smile. She turned and took my hand. Kathy, thank you for encouraging me. I'm planning to return to Germany to continue my research. Once I've made some breakthroughs, I'll come back. I'm sure I'll be able to help more people then. The next day, Mia left as well. She left a letter for Daniel. Daniel, this place doesn't belong to me after all. I need to find somewhere that can accept me. Many words omitted here. Don't come looking for me. Daniel crumpled the letter into a ball and threw it on the ground violently. His face contorted with rage. Get all the family helicopters ready, we need to find her immediately. His subordinates reported that Mia had fled quite far this time, all the way across the Atlantic. After going through countless hardships and using immeasurable resources, manpower and money, Daniel finally found her. At this moment, the two should have reconciled and are happily vacationing abroad. Good, everything is developing as I had anticipated. A few days later, just as I expected, due to Daniel's long absence from work, a major oversight occurred in his business dealings. This time, it caused significant losses for Foster Group. The chairman, who is my father, unleashed his fury at the company. Where is your CEO? Tell him to come see me right now. The trembling assistant stepped forward, head bowed, and explained quietly. Sir, Mr. Foster is still on holiday in Europe. He probably can't make it back in time. My father's face darkened further. The room full of directors and employees didn't dare to make a sound. Actually, this situation is not beyond remedy, I spoke up. As soon as I said this, the surrounding employees immediately turned grateful looks towards me. The disruption of our supply chain and the breakdown in negotiations clearly shows someone is working against us behind the scenes. So, we can use this to our advantage, appear to be in disarray on the surface, while secretly seeking new supply chains. This will cause our opponents to let their guard down, allowing us to expose the masterminds in one fell swoop. As for new supply chains, I happen to have a friend abroad with connections. I've already contacted her, and she says it's no problem. After hearing my suggestion, my father's expression gradually softened. He nodded, finalizing the plan. Good, we'll proceed as you've outlined. Everyone felt relieved and rushed to leave the conference room. Kathy. Just as I was about to leave, my father suddenly called out to me. Starting tomorrow, you'll take over as CEO. Dad? I stared at him, my face full of disbelief. Isn't Daniel the heir you've been grooming since childhood? My father stood up and gazed out the window, his expression complex. In the business world, what's most important isn't just ability and intelligence, but also a sense of responsibility. You've excelled in all these areas, and I believe you can lead Foster Group to even greater heights. As for your brother, speaking of Daniel, he let out a heavy sigh. He may not be suited for this position after all. A few months later, I quickly became familiar with the CEO's responsibilities. Meanwhile, Daniel had returned back with Mia. On the day of his return, he stormed into my office. Kathy, did you tamper with the money in my account? Despite having been on holiday for so long, there wasn't a trace of joy on his face. Probably because he had hired so many people to accompany him abroad, but now couldn't afford to pay their wages. I continued to focus on the documents in my hand, replying without looking up. The money in your credit card has been used to cover the losses from the project your team mishandled. As for the rest, it's family money. If you want to spend more, you'll have to earn it yourself. Daniel rushed forward, almost going berserk with anger. What gives you the right? I finally looked up, meeting his gaze squarely. The fact that I'm now the CEO of Foster Group. Daniel finally realized something was amiss. He staggered back 2 steps, his face full of disbelief. How is this possible? It can't be. Who decided this? I did. Our father walked in from outside, his face stern. Dad, have you gone mad? Daniel had completely lost his composure, no longer maintaining his usually aloof image. This is the CEO position. How can you give it to a woman? I'm the heir to Foster Group. Dad shook his head, the disappointment evident on his face. In the company, we only look at ability. Everything else is irrelevant. And your sister is more capable of handling this position than you are. Daniel's eyes were rimmed with red as he let out a maniacal laugh, nodding to himself. Fine, just fine. I don't need to stay in this house anymore. Hearing this, Mia rushed forward to stop him. Daniel! Don't be rash. Why don't you apologize to your father? As expected of the female lead, she's quite clever. Knowing which is more important between face and fortune. But who is my brother? He's the young master who's always had his way since childhood. Others can only beg for his forgiveness, he never apologizes first. Mia, I won't submit to him. From now on, even if I die out there, I won't return to this house or set foot in Foster Group again. Daniel's attitude was resolute. This time, he was determined to leave. After they left, Mia came to see me again in the afternoon. She wanted to ask me to take Daniel back. I remember Miss Bailey once said something like this. As long as you and Daniel could be together, you'd be willing even if you had nothing. I can't help but be deeply moved by your sincerity. So, I wish you both happiness together, for a lifetime. I said these words with a smile, then closed the door of the mansion without hesitation. Time flew by, and another spring arrived. What are you doing? Let go of me. This is my family's company. Don't you know I can have you fired? A disheveled man blocked the entrance to the company, shouting like a madman. Facing the man restrained by security, I smiled and waved at him. Hello, brother. It's been a long time. Kathy, you despicable wretch. Give me back my position, give it back to me. The moment the man saw me, he seemed to be triggered by something and began struggling frantically, like an enraged lion. Daniel, you handed everything over yourself. How can you blame me? I spoke coldly, looking down at him. Daniel, why are you here again? Mia appeared suddenly at the company entrance, limping and carrying a child. At this moment, she looked haggard and withered. Her disheveled appearance was similar to when I first met her, yet somehow lacking a certain spark. Daniel, having just been rebuffed by me, was seething with anger. He suddenly broke free from the security guards, turned around and grabbed Mia's collar, completely disregarding the safety of the child in her arms. He shook her violently. It's all your fault, you wretch. You're the reason I've ended up like this. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be in this situation. It's all your fault. Daniel roared in rage and suddenly threw a punch. The unexpected strong impact almost sent Mia flying. The child nearly fell to the ground, fortunately protected by Mia's desperate embrace. Looking at their current state, I calmly said, "Call the police." I wasn't surprised by Daniel's fate. The business world is full of fair-weather friends. Once Daniel lost the backing of Foster Group, that mighty oak, naturally no one would give him the time of day. Add to that his formerly arrogant attitude, which had offended quite a few people. Now that he'd fallen from grace, those erstwhile partners were all too eager to kick him while he was down. These days, Daniel isn't just penniless, he's drowning in debt. But he's not entirely without assets. After all, he's finally attained that long-sought love, hasn't he? Miss White will be arriving at the airport in 20 minutes, the assistant informed me. I smiled as I watched Daniel being led away by the police. Let's go to the airport, I said decisively. Life offers so much more to look forward to than just love and marriage.